Hey everyone, it's Mare from SickMom. Thought I'd check in for another coffee with Mare. And today's segment is brought to you by hot water. Yes, that's right, folks. It's far too late in the day for me to be drinking coffee, as I've discovered, much to my dismay, thanks to being on carnivore now for just over a month. Um, I can't drink coffee late at night anymore. I used to be able to pack away a pot of coffee before going to bed and have no problem sleeping the night through. Not so much. If I have coffee too late in the day now, I end up wanting to reorganize my entire life in the middle of the night somehow. Um, yes, today, hot water in one of my favorite cups. I'm very fond of coffee mugs that, they're two favorite colors. I don't know if you can see on the inside. It's teal. Love it. One of my Christmas presents from a sister and her family. Loved it. So, what I thought I'd talk to you about a bit today is being a Renaissance woman or Renaissance person, Renaissance man, and you will probably be wondering, what does she mean by that? There's another term that is more commonly applied these days. Oh, please forgive the camera shaking. I so need to fix my earbud situation. Every time I shake my head, it makes my earbuds shake the camera. Sorry about that. But Renaissance person is also known as a multipotentialite. There is a fabulous TED talk on multipotentialites that I discovered. Oh, that's got to be going back at least 5 years now. And it was the first time that I ran across a term that described me to a T. And being a multipotentialite, the gal actually who gave the TED talk, her name is Emily Wapnick, and she started an entire community around herself because she realized that she was a multipotentialite and wanted to help other people that were also similar to that. So let me explain. Take, for instance, the fact that I have always been quite artistic and creative. I started writing when I was very young and enjoyed it tremendously. And then as I kind of pursued other goals in life, I sort of left writing to the wayside. But I've always felt like, having that artist heart, even though I wasn't necessarily doing a lot of art at the time. And the older I got, the more I realized that those creative pursuits were just essential. And thankfully, I had begun face painting at one point, and that started being a creative outlet for me. And prior to that, I mean, I've always been kind of crafty, but really, where I loved to let loose creatively was with makeup. And that was as just freelancing as a makeup artist for many, many, many years. And just loving to do a deep dive and a study of makeup and skincare. And I actually did have my own skincare and spa product business for a while, where the knowledge that I gained from that business was invaluable because I had access to all of the cutting edge science and technology that was going into the line of products that I was, effectively, it wasn't quite repping a product line. It was more like I was reselling it. And I really enjoyed that process because I just, yeah, as my shirt says, data nerd, I'm a total nerd when it comes to that. Like, give me the science behind why makeup does what it does, and I'm just such a happy girl. And then let me play with the makeup and make you pretty. Well, you're already pretty. You just need a little bit of extra sparkle sometimes. So, pair that with the fact that another creative endeavor I had taken into, or I had undertaken, was a jewelry business. I started making jewelry and selling it, and I had friends at the time that were also doing that, and I was so inspired, and I thought, well, why can't I do that too? So, I mean, I took the initiative and got some clients, and I, had a great little business for a while and really enjoyed it and started getting into things like silversmithing and playing with fire and torches. Oh, so much fun. Silversmithing is very dirty, and I am, as girly as I am, I also enjoy, you know, getting my hands dirty and doing things that, like you just feel like it's just good fun. And that includes things like running obstacle course races, and the muddier the better, always. And then after that, I come home and I get cleaned up, and I've got some fabulous shoes over on my shoe rack on the door, and just love to get all girled up and feel feminine and pretty and wear heels. And so there's always kind of been this duality, if you will. Like I can compartmentalize the girly parts long enough to get really dirty and really muddy and super sweaty and gross, and then just go have a shower and go, okay, everything's back to normal. So very adaptable kind of personality for different situations. And when I had started my jewelry business, I was already working full time in information technology. I went to school for information technology. That's my formal education. And of course, because I'm me, while I was doing information technology, I decided to study nutrition as my elective. And one of the drivers behind that was because my first career was a ski instructor. And I enjoyed that tremendously. I did that for nearly a decade and worked in and around travel and tourism for well over a decade. So I just, I, from my skiing background, always wanted to know more about nutrition and about fitness. And having a father who had also battled with weight and heart disease, it was really important to me that I arm myself with enough knowledge that I could become a fit, healthy older person and continue to improve my health and fitness. That's been a lifelong goal for me, always. But you can kind of see how it's like all of these influences in my life. It's not like I can just kind of say that nutrition, oh, I read an article once. No, when I latch onto a subject, especially if it's anything sciencey around nutrition or medical research, I really get into that stuff. And I want to know as much as I can possibly go to the depth of my understanding and try and expand that to the point where I feel super proficient and that I could potentially explain something. And that kind of, that wanting to do those deep dives and get really good at stuff started with skiing, because that was the first thing that just completely lit up my entire life when I was a kid. So I've kind of worked it backwards for you a little bit, but if you start seeing how that works going forward, that having a sort of an adaptable nature and, being a coach and an instructor and moving ahead through life with those kinds of skills, it was second nature for me to want to be super proficient to the point where I could teach stuff. And I mean, scuba diving was much the same way. I did my dive master course. At one point, had I continued to travel, I wanted to become a diving instructor, and that would have been my next step, was to take the PADI instructor course. And and so anyway, so there's always been this driver for having knowledge and being really having that certainty of knowledge. And it didn't matter whether it was something like diving, which for me is science. Skiing, turns out that's science too, because you're dealing with gravity, not always my friend. And you're dealing with meteorology. You're also dealing with terrain variances. So you're dealing with your topography, and you're dealing with physics every day. So that was just such a full mind of science for me, because, I needed to know, well, what kind of snow are we going to be dealing with, for the class that I have, and what's the weather going to be like, and trying to think of safety in that. So as much as people may discount ski instructing as a profession, and I've had a lot of people in my years do it to my face. And, they used to say, hey, well, when are you going to get a real job? And I straight deadpan would look at them and just say, I have a real job. Do you love what you do? Because I was in love with my sport, in love with sharing it, and just wanted to see people have that same love. And if they didn't come to me with that love of the sport, I could usually help them to find some enjoyment or appreciation out of the sport that they were potentially doing because they were there for somebody else, like a spouse or a partner. So moving forward, all of that knowledge has compounded through traveling, and I worked on live aboard dive boats. They were sailboats in Australia on the Great Barrier Reef. I've managed restaurants. I have worked in hospitality. I have worked, like I said, travel and tourism, information technology. And then after I actually went to school for information technology, I ended up not really staying in it in a pure sense I didn't stay in it for a very long time, but I was always kind of working around the fringes and still keeping up on certain pockets of knowledge, because as you know, technology, it changes. Like you blink your eyes and device standards change, and there's always newer, better, faster something that's coming up, whether it's a cellular network or whether it's your personal laptop or computer. Macs are awesome. But anyhow, so even though I wasn't necessarily doing a super technical function anymore, I was writing about the science, and I started expanding because of the consulting I was doing. I was working with many, many industries, and I felt so blessed to have that opportunity. It was so much fun for me to be able to dive into so many different kinds of science and helping with entrepreneurs and people that are starting up their businesses, and just seeing some really mind-boggling stuff, like just awesome, and feeling so proud to see a lot of that happening right in my own backyard, being Calgary and Alberta and in Canada. So anyway, so I started then rounding out the different kinds of science that I was starting to be familiar with. And from there, I was also dealing with chronic illnesses for a very long time. So I continued to do research into different potential illnesses and what markers are there for that? What kind of testing is that for that? How can you conclusively tell whether it's A or B? And sometimes the answer takes you weeks to find. And I'm really thankful that we live in the information age where everything is at our fingertips, because I feel like I have still managed to shortcut some of the loops I could have gotten stuck in on my way to diagnosis, and that, that concentrated 10 years is actually much longer than that if we kind of go back to the beginning of what my medical history was. But that's a different video. I talked about that a little bit yesterday. But anyhow, so I ended up bringing writing back into my life. I have also worked in fashion and really enjoyed working in fashion, and and I have all of this technical knowledge from when I was working retail in the mountains and dealing with super, super high-end ski wear and some of the textiles and the science behind those textiles and why they were so much better than, the other things that were available on the market at the time. So just throw me a challenge and say, hey, can you learn this? Usually the answer is yes. Neurosurgery, not so much. I will be the first person to say I will probably never be a neurosurgeon. However, neurology fascinates me. Oh, I love that stuff. It's amazing. And we'll actually have a few other segments that talk about neurology and neuroplasticity coming up soon, because it is astonishing what you can accomplish just by retraining your brain a little bit and creating new neural pathways. So we'll geek out on that on another day. But just back to being a multi-potentialite or being a Renaissance person, they used to describe a Renaissance person as, you can imagine, kind of a jack of all trades. Now, jack of all trades usually get a bad name because then they're master of none. I prefer to look at it as jack of all trades and master of many. There are many different subjects that I have mastered in my lifetime and that had nothing to do with my career, but ended up kind of coming into the fringes of what I was doing for work, because I always sought to bring more of that into my work to make it more challenging and diverse. So if any of that sounds familiar to you, if it sounds like, oh yeah, well, I mean, I really like to do a deep dive on stuff, and I've changed careers a few times, and I never really felt like I was losing anything when I changed careers. Now, I have met a lot of multi-potentialites and coached some, and we've had that conversation where it's looking at the knowledge as compound effect as opposed to something that's very linear, and that once you stop doing something, that you leave that knowledge behind and then you move forward with a completely different skill set and that they don't relate to each other. The way it works when you are a Renaissance person or a multi-potentialite, or also known as a polymath, is that all of that knowledge makes sense to you in a way that you can start applying that to everything moving forward. So your skill sets become very fluid and you can move them forward, and it helps you to learn new skills faster. So the more you learn how to learn, and you start finding the things that really work for you, so that when you need to develop deep subject matter quickly, you're not wasting a lot of time and you're getting to the resources that are really going to be the most impactful. So it's almost like you learn how to do a triage of knowledge, and that you kind of sort out the fluff that's not relevant to the conversation that you want to engage in, or the thing that you want to master. And you just seem to get there a lot faster. So we're lifelong learners, and we tend to have had more than one career. And, I don't know what the statistics are these days. I remember when I was going to high school, they used to say the person will have an average of 4 career changes in their life. Some people have a lifelong career in one profession. Others will continue to change careers, and some never get to the end of those career changes. What my goal always was to be working with really great people, to have new ideas that I could be exposed to, and to just feel like I'm challenged and appreciated. That's kind of the perfect combination for me, no matter what I'm doing. So yeah, I've done some kind of these sort of moves in my career. They weren't exactly linear. They weren't exactly up or down. They were just sideways. They were different. It's almost like you're going off on a tangent of the same thing. To the outside looking in, though, it looks like, wow, you really can't decide what you want to do with your life. And that's not the truth at all. Often people who are multi-potentialites feel a lot of external pressure from other people to do what they think you should be doing. That kind of creates stalls in the multi-potentialites' growth, I guess. And sometimes it's a blessing. Sometimes it's just like why didn't I just listen to my intuition? So I've learned over the years to really hone that in, and to start paying attention to not just my intuition, but looking at all of that cumulative experience and saying, what can I do with this? Like, this is amazing. There's all of this knowledge that I either have at my fingertips or I can get it back quickly. So how do I apply that so that I can continue to help people? My number one goal in my life has always been, I want to help people. And it's just been such a joy to have different career paths where I've been really able to be in service of others. I've talked a lot about leadership in the Carnivore series of videos, and I will be doing a separate segment or section that is devoted to leadership topics, because I really firmly believe that that pairs with self-care. And those those ideas are a cumulative effect of 30 years of working and having exposure to a lot of different cultures, and not just cultures in different countries, but also cultures in different environments and businesses, and different industries. And I've taken all of that knowledge that I've gained along the way, along with a lot of personal development. I'm very committed to becoming the best version of myself that I can. And I also really just wish that for other people, that they can feel like they are achieving the best version of who they are. And sometimes give them a helping hand, so that, if they start feeling like they're kind of losing their way a bit, usually takes a conversation or two and we can get that all sorted out. So that's kind of the joy of coaching and being there for people and listening in a way that you're trying to help them find the way through what they're going through. So I strongly encourage you to do a little bit of reading up on multipotentialites. We're not that weird. We're just very different than other people. And I feel very lucky that I am built that way, I guess, or that my brain works in that way. It used to frustrate me when I was younger because I just felt so dissatisfied, because I felt like working with one skill set was so limited. And most people are like, well, no, come on, like that's how you become an expert, or that's how you develop, the knowledge that you need. Agreed, but I think that human potential, we can do so much more. We're capable of so much more than that. And the more I explore the different avenues and the different realms that are opening up to me, the luckier I feel. And I just feel so blessed and so grateful that I've had some of the wonderful opportunities in my life and great teachable moments and aha moments. I mean, you name it, okay? When you start really opening yourself up to what's happening in the world and how you can participate in it, it's amazing to see what will come up for you. Just to finish off quickly, if you do want to see more about what multipotentialites are like, I did a broadcast, or a number of broadcasts. It was a series with Global Multipods with a lovely gentleman from India named OJ Singh. And hi, OJ, miss you, my friend. We connected over the subject of being multipotentialites and just trying to find a way to make it easier for other people like us to feel accepted, and understanding how they can create their space in the world as opposed to trying to fit into a box. I don't like being put into a box. Most people don't enjoy being put into a box. Multipotentialites, especially, they want to blow up the box. So I'm in the camp of let's blow up the box and see what space we have to work with after. So I have linked to the Multipotentialites playlist that is actually here on YouTube. These broadcasts were done a number of years ago before I started having another major flare with my illnesses. And unfortunately, I became too sick for us to continue with these broadcasts. But OJ has continued to champion the cause, and he is doing amazing things. So if you want to look up, his full name is Ankarjot Singh. And he's a lovely person. He is so talented, and I feel so grateful to know him and have him in my life. But you can see the conversations that we had and some of the guests that we also had on our broadcasts at that time. And I am definitely hoping that OJ will join me for at least a segment or two here on SickMom, and that you can also all benefit from his knowledge, because he is really just lovely, lovely human being. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. If that made sense to you, awesome. So happy. If you're very, very confused, it's okay. Don't be surprised. A lot of people are by that because it's just not how the world is currently set up for people in the workplace. And I just firmly believe in creating the space that is going to work for me as opposed to me fitting into somebody else's idea of what I should be doing. So we're going to leave that there for today. And please, once again, if you'd love to leave some comments, I would love to read them. I'm so very grateful that we're starting a great community here full of supportive people, and be kind and generous to each other. We're all humans after all. So if you've enjoyed today's video, please give us a big thumbs up. Just right there. Just go ahead, click like, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. So then hit the notification bell, and then you'll know exactly when the next videos are landing on YouTube. So once again, thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to having coffee with you again tomorrow. So for tonight, it's SickMom checking out.